So Five Nights at Freddy's is based off a video game where possessed animatronics terrorize the night shift security guard, and Willy's Wonderland is a movie from a couple years ago where Nicolas Cage plays a janitor and has to fend off the same kind of threat. What I'm trying to say here is if you go ahead and get Nick Cage in the next one of these, I can already see the Oscar nominations rolling in. What's up guys, I'm Sully, and today we're talking about the brand new horror video game adaptation, Five Nights at Freddy's. All you need to know about this one is that the story goes like this. Recently fired and desperate for work, a troubled young man named Mike agrees to take a position as a night security guard at an abandoned theme restaurant, Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. But he soon discovers that nothing at Freddy's is what it seems. I'll start this one off by saying that I am definitely a fan of the games within this franchise. Just in general though, horror games have been my obsession for a long time now, especially ones like Resident Evil, Outlast, Alien Isolation, and Dead Space. Now, have I played every single Five Nights at Freddy's game? Not even close, but I played through the first couple and I've done plenty a deep dive into the extensive lore that comes along with it. So I feel like I have a perspective and a point of view that's more prepared to digest a kind of film like this than the casual moviegoer. And even though the animatronics are a dream come true, and there are definitely moments that had me fired up, this one left me feeling split right down the middle. But one thing I want to defend right off the bat here is this movie's PG-13 rating. I have complained about the PG-13 rating holding back horror movies in the past. I think Megan was the most recent one that I was yelling into the void about. But when a horror movie is crafted with that specific rating in mind, they can be very successful. Sam Raimi's Drag Me to Hell is an obvious example I always use when talking about this stuff. And the Five Nights at Freddy's games are actually geared towards a teen audience. The fear comes a lot more from the implied story, the atmosphere, and the jump scares, not the blood and the gore. So it didn't really bother me that this carried a PG-13 rating because they kind of knew how to work the system a bit. I mean, sure, there was a lack of in-your-face gore that we would have gotten in droves if this thing was rated R, but I actually think that they found some pretty interesting ways to imply all of that grisly violence that left me plenty satisfied. I'm talking kills that happen within the shadows, creepy encounters behind obscured windows, POV shots from the animatronics themselves. I think they handled it pretty well from where I'm sitting. And sticking with the animatronics for a second, they are far and away the best part of this movie. I mean, obviously, right? That was to be expected in a Five Nights at Freddy's film. But I was super impressed with just how well these characters were brought to life and felt right at home in this world. The way they played off of Josh Hutcherson and Matthew Lillard, actually interacted with one another, and moved around when they were prowling the halls of the pizzeria was fantastic and exactly what I had signed up for from this movie. If you just gave me that for an hour and 45 minutes with some carnage sprinkled in here and there, I would have been a happy camper. But unfortunately for me, this movie had other plans. Getting into the meat and potatoes of this story here, what confused me the most while I was watching this movie was just how often it took us on tangents and directed our focus away from the pizzeria. In my mind, a good video game adaptation reimagines the situations and scenarios that the game is known for, but up on the silver screen. And I feel like what you want to do in order to capture the essence of this game well is give us a shit ton of anxiety and jump scares. I really think it's as simple as that. Everyone that even remotely knows about this franchise's existence is aware that the games are almost 95% anxiety and jump scares. So why their plan from the beginning wasn't to give us a metric ton of the moments that the franchise is known for is beyond me. Obviously, we know the fan base and myself love running wild with the lore and the Easter eggs, but within the actual games, all of that stuff is implied and takes a back seat to the simple and effective style of gameplay. I feel like they should have just littered the movie with tons of winks and nods to the deeper lore, but keep the actual events of the film closely tied with those of the first game. And who knows, maybe the Five Nights at Freddy's movie that I want wouldn't even work. But I just did not vibe with the subplot here. And I don't even know if it can be labeled as a subplot in this movie because it has a massive amount of attention allotted to it, almost as much as the main story. It basically transports us into this dreamlike sequence that happens over and over again with almost no payoff. And let me tell you, by the 5th time, it starts to take its toll on you. Like, this thing should have taken place within the pizzeria from beginning to end. Watching these animatronic characters stalk their prey and chop people up is not going to get old anytime soon. Stick to what works. There are some enjoyable kills. Josh Hutcherson and Matthew Lillard are the high point of the movie when it comes to the acting, and the animatronics are literally perfect. But the story had no focus, the dialogue was pretty uninspired, and the scares were very limited. As a fan of the franchise, I want to see more and hope they get it right next time. Maybe fans will love it, but in my mind, the best movie we have about a guy fending off psycho animatronics in a discount Chuck E. Cheese is Nick Cage's Willy's Wonderland. I said what I said. Five Nights at Freddy's gets a Sully score of 2.5 stars. So if you're a huge fan of this franchise, I want to hear from you. Did you love this movie? Did it not live up to the hype? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys at the next one.